Sriram, another participant, looks like he knows about UI UX. So he says UX is nothing but user experience, and user interface enables the app or website better.
Yeah, very good. So basically, all digital products have three components: content, the interface, and the experience the user goes through. So if you look at this image, right, there's food in a bowl. So here the food is the content, the bowl and the spoon are the user interface. That is the mechanism by which the user interacts with the content, and the experience is the experience of eating the food. And that's exactly how the digital products also work. So there'll be some content which the user will see and interact with to accomplish a certain task, and it is our responsibility as designer to make sure this user experience is very enjoyable. If you give the user food in a dirty plate, is not going to enjoy it. If the food is not tasty, the content is not good, the user is not going to enjoy it. So it is our job to make sure that the experience is very enjoyable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the basics, the life cycle of what goes into making a design. So this is the typical design life cycle of any product, and the core of UI UX, as you might already know, it is the user. So you have to know what problem you're solving, and more importantly, who you're solving it for. And if you get the who right, and what and you understand the user's problem clearly, then the rest of it will follow very smoothly. If you don't get your user persona defined clearly, then no matter how beautiful an interface you're designing, the product is not going to work, because you're not talking to the right user, right? So this is the life cycle. What we are going to do is we are going to take one simple problem, take it through the stages of this life cycle, and see how the design process works. Okay. One thing you need to keep in mind in design is design it always for the user. As much as possible, study your user before getting into the design. So design is all about solving problems, and if you don't have a problem to solve, don't waste your time creating a product that is not doing anything, right? So always relate it to a problem that someone is having that you can solve for him. So this is the first fundamental you need to remember. So this is our use case. Okay, let what we are going to do is we are going to think of a furniture renting platform. Okay, now the problem in front of us is, let's say we are starting a business. You are starting a business, and you have around 15 to 20 people, but at the same time you don't want to invest too much money in furniture. So do you want to look for some renting options where you don't spend money, at the same time someone is doing the maintenance for you. So this is our hypothetical use case, which we are going to take through the design life cycle and see how we can solve the problem. So in design, what we have is something called as a double diamond process, right? When you have understood your user, and and you are trying to identify the problem, you do a lot of study, you do competitor analysis, see if someone is solving the problem there, you see what solutions you can offer. So your double diamond process will go through four stages. First, you will explore the problem area, see what all the pain points the user is going through, and once you have done that study clearly, you will come to a point where you have a clear definition of the problem. So when you explore what problems are, then you define what the exact problem is. Now, when you know what the exact problem is, again you diverge, and you think of what solutions can we do to solve this problem. And once you come across a reasonable solution, then you again define that solution and deliver that solution. So this is how a double diamond process works. What you need to also understand in design is it is very, very iterative. It is never ever, there's nothing called as a perfect design. Right from the day you think of a design until the day the design gets into the real world, it is never perfect. It is always evolving. It is always in a feedback cycle. The very critical for you to do during any design project is make sure you involve all the stakeholders. So let's say you're working for a corporate, and you're faced with this problem. So there will be a lot of stakeholders. There'll be a business user, there'll be the end user, there'll be the engineering team, there'll be the marketing team. So make sure all these people are on the same page as far as their expectation of how the product should do, right? Otherwise What will happen is at some point in time, if you leave any stakeholder out, your product might not be successful because you're not meeting their requirements. So let's start with the design life cycle. So the first step in the design life cycle is empathize, right? So empathize is where your user research comes in. Try to understand your user. Let's say you're starting, now we are talking about a furniture platform, right? The user is going to be startup founders who are running small and medium startups. So what you do is you go and talk to these people, see how what problems are they facing, how much money are they investing, what is the typical office square feet area, what kind of furniture products they are looking at. So you do a lot of research, and you empathize with the user. And when you do all this research, what you get is a user persona. What you see on the right side is a sample user persona, and it defines your user with 2 or 3 statements. You tell about his background, you tell about what his pain points are, and you also talk about what is he trying to accomplish, what problem is he trying to solve. And once you get a picture, what you need to do is you need to also understand the target demography of your user is someone who's going to be using this app a lot. Don't target a set of users who are going to be a very minimal set of your user population, right? Always follow the 80-20%, where 80% of people you're talking to are your potential customers, so that you get your user persona and research right. The other thing you have to do is competition analysis. Study the competition clearly. Anytime you get a new idea or start a new product, there will always be 10 to 15 people who have already done it. It's usually, there's nothing called as an original idea. So what you need to do is study your competition, see how they are solving the problem, what is working for them, what is not working for them, how are they talking to their customers. So once you do all this, you have a very clear picture of what kind of messaging you want to give to the user, and how you want him to take a journey to solve his problems. In this case, we are talking about office furniture, right? So this is what user research will do for you. The next is we after we do the empathize and the user research, and we come to the define phase, right? So this is you're thinking through the you're putting yourself in the shoes of the startup founder. You're defining a problem statement. This is our statement. I don't want to invest too much on office furniture, but prefer it to hire it at reasonable rates without having to worry about its maintenance, right? See, here we are still not talking about colors and fonts and what screens are we going to do. Nothing. It is still at a very fundamental level. At we are defining the problem for the user. And once we have that problem defined clearly, then we can start investigating the into the solutions, right? The next phase again is the ideate phase. So if you remember the double diamond process, once we did a lot of exploration in the empathize phase, we converge again to a define phase. Now we again start exploring solutions. You have to brainstorm ideas with your teams. Think of what products is out there. It doesn't really have to be a digital app. You can always start a furniture store and solve this problem. It all depends on your target demographic of the user, and what kind of problems they are facing and what is the best way to solve it, right? So here we are assuming that okay, we are going to start a digital platform where people can have rent furniture easily, something like a subscription model. They can use the furniture as long as they're paying for the subscription, and we will do the maintenance for you. So this is our idea, right? So once we define the idea, next we start exploring the next step, which is user journeys, right? So I'll go to the next step. The next step is your where your actual UX UI design starts. The design phase of the life cycle starts coming in. So this is called as a prototype phase. And a prototype phase, the design is made up of a lot of elements. And when you bring these elements together, that creates your design story. Now remember, the user is also a human being. You have to treat him as a human being. He will have a set of emotions that he's going through day by day when he's going through the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So you have to keep those emotions in mind. And when you do your design has to talk to that emotion, so that the user can get a connect immediately and perform his tasks. Now there are two aspects to the design: the UX part and the UI part. The UX part is where it is all logical. There is a step by step process. And the UI part is where a little bit of artistry and visual flair comes in. These two have to be combined in a very clear way to give the optimum solution to the user. So we'll go through this one by one. Okay. And if you look at the center of this circle, it stands on the user research. So all the things that you do with the design have to tie back to the user and make sure it is his problem that is getting solved. It is not that you're doing some fancy design for yourself and putting a product out in the market. So there's something called as a product market fit. So unless you do a product which is right, solving a problem for the market, the product will not be successful. It is the same with the design also. The user research has to be the core on which your design is built on, right? So we'll start with the prototype process. The first one is the navigation. Now, let us say you're starting a furniture renting platform. So the user can do a set of tasks on the platform. He can log in, he can browse through the furniture, he can place orders, he can talk to customer support. So you will have to now come up with a list of user stories on the platform to solve these user problems. What are the tasks that a user can do on the platform, right? And once you identify these user stories, the next step is coming up with these things: task flows, sitemaps, and information architecture. So task flows is something that describes the user journey. If I want to order a furniture, what are the things I will do first? Step one, I will come to the site. Step two, I'll search for sofas for my lounge. Like for example. Step three, I'll shortlist some products. Step four, I'll add them to a cart. Step five, I'll make the payment. So this is your task flow. A sitemap is something, it defines how a task or a set of tasks is presented to the user as a menu, right? So it is a design looking at the back at the user. And sitemap are in information architecture. These are terms that can be swapped sometimes, but usually information architecture relates more to the content, and sitemap is tied more to a task flow. For example, if you go to any website, you will have a navigation menu, right? That's your sitemap. For example, if you go to Amazon.in or Flipkart, and so all the products there are grouped into certain categories. You can also search by category. That's your information architecture. So all these things will determine how easy the user can get to the decision making point he wants, right? So at any point in the customer journey, the user has to be aware where he is, where did he come from, where can he go from here, right? If the user feels lost on your platform and he doesn't know what to do, that means your design has failed, right? So we are talking about the user journey here. We are still not come into the look and feel part of your design, right? This is all just process, how the user can solve a problem easily, right? So now if you look at the bottom, I have some 5 boxes. Now again, this is a hypothetical sitemap. So the user can land on your homepage and he can explore the products. He can learn about the company. He can contact you if you want. Then you will have a cart and checkout functionality. So these are the basic things that you can put. So another thing you need to keep in mind when you do the design is be very agile, right? Don't look for a finished product on day one. See, so that's in design. We have something called as a minimum viable product, right? So always be in that mode. See, if the core problem is getting solved without adding a lot of bells and whistles, and take that MVP into the market as soon as possible, and then you can keep adding the bells and whistles as you go on. So always be in that MVP mode, right? Start doing small things faster, and ship your product. In product design, the important part is always shipping. Don't keep the design to yourself. Don't keep it going through endless cycles of review within your team. The real world feedback is always important more than hypothetical feedback. So your focus should always be on getting the product out fast and improving faster. So once we understand the navigation, we will have something called as sitemap. Then we will have screens, right? Okay, in my platform, these are going to be the screens, and this is how the user will go from one screen to another. We have a user journey in place now. Next, we go to the content. Now, this is where you start talking to the user, right? This is one of the most important parts of your design, right? Even if you're not, you have a great flair for visual design, you have a good flair for visual design, but you understand language and navigation better, it is still okay. So here in content, if you can get the right words to talk to the user, you tell him what your product is doing, you can give actionable CTAs. If your content is written in such a way that it relates to the user, it'll be a lot effective. So what happens, in some websites is you talk about yourself, you talk about the product, you don't talk to the user, right? So you always have to keep in mind, that the content is talking to the user and asking him to do something. Always keep your content, actionable. Anything that you say about yourself should also end in some action for the user to do, right? So always keep nudging the user to complete his goal. That is how your content has to be written. In content, there's something called as branding, which comes before content, right? When you're starting a furniture platform, for example, the problem that you're trying to solve here, what kind of a brand identity are you carrying? So we have a lot of branding archetypes, and so that's a separate topic altogether. But if you're starting a product, you also have to think about what is the brand voice that you're putting out in the world, right? And that feeds into the way that your content is written, right? So your body text, your headlines, they all have to follow that brand voice. If you look at this bottom box, right, this is a example of optimal content. It has to engage your target readers, right? That you have to hook your readers in. It has to be optimized for search. So if your product is out in the world but it's not discoverable by search engines, that means again your product will fail. Then it has to represent the brand voice accurately. You can't pretend to be one person and talk like someone else, right? It's the same for your brand. And also be grammar and spelling free. So all this goes into smoothening the user experience for the user. If he's reading something that is talking to the problem he's been carrying for a long time, he'll automatically connect with it and start engaging with your site. So your content plays a very crucial role. Okay, now we are starting to write some content. Okay, now let's say we are doing the home page, and we will start with a banner. We'll take the hero section, as an example. Whenever you land on the website, you will land on the hero section, which make will summarize your product offering, and it will tell the user what the entire site is about. This is the most important part of your website, right? And this will determine whether the user will even go to the other pages or not. If you don't get this right, then the user will leave your website in 2 3 seconds and he will go away. So this is the most crucial page, part of your website design, where the landing page. So what we'll do is we'll take it through the design lifecycle and start building this content out. So first thing, you write your headline: rent awesome furniture for your office. So what you're telling the person is, we are providing high quality furniture, and it's easy to rent. So you can impress when there's a client visit, or when employees are working in the office, they want a good infrastructure in place, right? If you want good employees, you also need a good infrastructure in place. So you're talking to your founder, you're telling them that you're giving good furniture for rent, and it will up level their office image when they're doing it, right? So this is, you write your content in such a way that your product offering is very clear. Then after that, once you go into the details of the page, then you break down your entire offering into the categories of products, and your quality assurance, all that, right? But this is where your summary is. Then once we have your content in place, we start thinking of layout. How do you want to present this content? If you remember, in the first slide we had a bowl and a spoon to put the food in that bowl, and give it to the person who's eating it, like that. Now we start building the interface, like, okay, what type of layout will work. Now there are different kinds of layouts, and if you look on the right side, I have written some examples of what you need to keep in mind. So first thing is responsive design. If you're building a website, it obviously has to be responsive. It has to work on all form factors, unless it's a product which has a lot of data points, and a mobile is not really a good viewport. Usually when you do a website, you have to make sure it works on all devices, from your mobile to your desktop. And the world has been moving towards mobile first since a very long time now. So your mobile navigation has to be really up to the task. Then in terms of layout, we also have macro layouts and micro layouts. So this is an insurance website, right? This has many sections. So all the big sections, that is your macro layout. And within the sections, you have a headline, then you have a sub headline, you have a illustration. So this is your micro layout. So there is a hierarchy of layouts. So you have to make sure both this macro layout and micro layout are aligned properly. The next thing after content is you have to get a great layout in place. Remember, this is just like constructing a house, right? Once you construct your house, the last thing you see is the look and feel of your house. But there's a lot of things which happen before the house is actually constructed. You create a plan, then you build a foundation, then you put bricks and cement, then you put the pipeline and the electrical. The last is the look and feel where you paint and decorate your house. In the same way, in your website, you have to get your in layout is place, and you have to see everything you do has to be tied to the step before it. Before layout, you thought of the content. Before content, you thought of your user. So it all has to flow from one thing to another in a seamless way, just to make sure at the end of the day what you do solves the user problem in a very efficient way. And one of the most important things in layouts is spacing and alignment. So no matter how busy it is or how bland it is, get your spacing and alignment right. And to get this right, that if you look at point five, there's something called as Gestalt principles. So this is a very, very, very important piece of how to get your design right. It goes to great details to explain how elements in your design have to be arranged so that the user can quickly make sense of it. So there are quite a few Gestalt principles. Please take your time to go through it and get it into your workflow. So every time you design something, right, these principles should always be in your muscle memory. You should always know like how to align stuff, how to group stuff, how to make something look in a certain way, how to get the user to come to some conclusions without putting too much effort. So this Gestalt principles, please go through them and make sure they become part of your workflow. They are very, very, very important, right? So once you start building your layout and once you finish those layout, what you do is you get is something called as a wireframe. A wireframe is something it takes your content, puts them in a certain layout, and the user or your customers, they will start getting an initial view of how the product is going to look like, right? So for example, here what we are saying is, okay, we'll have a hero section where we are introducing the product. We will have a top navigation. We'll give a CTA for the user to explore the products, and then he can continue his journey from there. So this is what we are thinking. So you start building your wireframes in place. In each section, what do you want to talk about? In each page, how are you going to arrange stuff? So the next step before going on to design is have a skeletons in place. So skeleton will determine your user interaction journey. What is the user going to see on each page and each section? What is the interaction possible for him? What can he do wrong? What can he do right? Your wireframe will start addressing these points once you put these in place, right? Now this is when the visual part starts coming in, right? So before you do your start doing your visual part, we do something called as a mood board, right? We just don't pick colors at random. You remember I talked about something called as a competition analysis. We see what competition is doing, what colors they are using, what's working for them. Then what we do is we take all those inputs, and we also have our brand voice with us. Once we have all this thing, we do something called as a mood board. A mood board is something which will give a user a glimpse of what how his product will look and feel like, right? Now let's say if you're doing a furniture brand, fun again, there are different levels of furniture. There's very premium furniture, there's office furniture, there's home furniture, there's interior design, right? There's concert there, there's what do you say, furniture for conference hall. So there are different kinds of furniture, and each furniture, and there are different levels of it, like premium and all that. So what you need to do in your mood board is you need to start collecting visual elements that kind of align with your brand voice, right? For example, here if you look at this example mood board, right, it is catching some premium elements. You can also take pictures from nature, you can take pictures of people. So this is You can do mood board again at at two levels. Once you start, you can start getting a dump of what you think will work. Then you can curate it and come to a finalized mood board. So if you see in this mood board, right, people have picked colors from these images, and they also we also get an idea what the font can look like, and what imagery we should take, right? So this doesn't have to, you don't have to stick to photographs. You can also take illustrations and all this. So this is just a sample for you to understand how this mood board works, right? And this is in a crude way. This is also related to furniture interior design, so maybe you can make relate to it, to the problem we are trying to solve a bit. I've given a video link in the bottom. This is a very good video on how to do the mood boarding. So whenever, if you remember the double diamond process, whenever you're now, getting into the visual aspect of it, explore options. And, when you finally are ready with two or three options, then present them to the client. Always keep your client on board with all the choices you're making. Never show the client only a finished product, right? He has to be a part of your process. Only then, he will understand the rationale behind all the decisions you're taking, and he will be on board why you are doing what you're doing, right? So always make the client a part of your process. So let's move on to typography. Now typography is a critical part. Everything has its own place. Typography is equally critical. Typography is text. Basically, the way you write your text will convey a certain type of emotion. Now if you look at the poster I have put, I could have just written creative as a single word without any colors. But the moment I blew it up, put a lot of variety in it, it gives me a different use and feel, right?
Yeah, in mode board, the different images are available, no?
So mood board, you have to Google. You can take mood board from any part of the world. So you can Google, you can go outside, you can visit and take photographs.
Okay.
So it is up to you how you want to build your mood board. But you there's no copyright on any images for the mood board, because you are just going to show it to the client to get his feedback, and you're building a brand. You're building a visual identity here. So you can take any image you want from Google and build your mood board. There's no restriction. But don't use any image in a final product if it's a paid image or something. You just have to be careful about that.
Okay. Thank you.
So when we are doing typography, again, keep your user in mind. Okay, what kind of user is he? So if you're, since we are talking to startup founders here, they would have a certain amount of experience. They would look at things in a very, broader way, and your font has to have that maturity to talk to audience. You can't use cheap fonts and expect to identify, impress the user. So always choose high quality fonts, right? And again, do a research here. See what the competitor using. See what trends are going on. See what fonts are working in the industry right now. So always back your choice with research and data, right? Because anytime you present this to a customer, he's going to ask you, why are you doing this? How will it make sense for my brand, right? So always back up your choices with research. So when you come to typography and choice of fonts, Google font is a good place to start if you're starting. And once you begin to evolve, when you are start to understand typography better, there are a lot of fade points also available. So your choice of font also depend on the budget that the client has. Many times the client will not have budget. They just want a good looking website in place without having invested too much money. Just like the startup founder we are talking to, right? So you might have to end up with taking some Google fonts in that case. But there are also paid fonts which you feel would help in delivering your product message in a better way. You go for paid fonts, and always convey emotion, right? So this is something you learn with practice. So for example, if you look at this poster here, the creative, it is conveying that emotion of creativity and some fun and some joy in creating. If you look at the way this illustrated is written, right, there's a lot of life in it. And if you look at the font below it, these are very regular fonts, right? So this poster is doing a lot of things. It is talking to you and conveying you, emotions. It is always also conveying information. So the information that you convey, usually it's conveyed through the body text, and the headlines are where the emotions are conveyed. This is how it usually happens. So you have to make sure you get this pairing right between your headline font and your body text. so that they work cohesively together. And then you understand the context where your font is working, whether it's a product, whether it's a poster. So in the poster you have a liberty to create something like this, but you can't do this on a manual, a product manual, because that's a wrong place, because that's where the user is coming to get some information, right? So always be aware of the context where you're using this. See now, if you look at this font, right, we have used a classic serif font. You also have to know the difference between serif and sans serif fonts. So when you go to study typography, study and see when these kinds of fonts are used. So if you look at this heading, right, we have a serif font where you kind of try to generate a classy feel, saying that you have a classy furniture company. And if you look at the body text, it's a very simple font which says. Which tells you what the offering is about. So you have to combine your typography in a certain way that both these emotions are addressed. The aspect of information and the aspect of emotion. Right. We'll go to color next. So color is also where again next to typography, color is one of the first things that the users see. Right. If there's a very ugly poster, right, you will not even look at it. But if something is something very beautifully colored, you can't stop looking at it, right? That is how color works. So again, the right colors is something you get with practice, but you have to, as a designer, you have to start learning the principles and make it part of your workflow, right? You have to be able to know at any point in time what color is going to work for my product, and more importantly, what color is going to work for my user, right? So you have to study color psychology, then you have to study this color wheel, and you also have to study branding, and there are a lot of other things you have to study. But these three are good. These three are the first starting points. So the colors that you use have to resonate with the product you're doing, and they have to resonate with the user you're talking to, right? Now let's say your example, searching a furniture brand, you can't put have red color all over the place. Red is the color of danger. For example, if you look at purple and blue, they are used in tech, they're used for SaaS products. So, you have to understand the space of the product before deciding on its color, right? So please go through a lot of literature on color and, start bringing the color as part of your workflow. So what we are doing here is we are trying to add some colors now, right? Now here, what I've done is I picked up only one color from the mood board. So we have some colors of brown and green, right, to talk about furniture. Another thing you need to keep in mind is there are two types of colors, primary and secondary, right? So your primary is your main brand color. The secondary colors are what help. So besides your main colors, you have also have to get your grays and blacks and whites very properly, because they are the ones which will form majority of your design. So in design, we also have something called as a 60-30-10 principle. 60 is what your majority color space looks like. So if you look at this design, right, the white and blacks are taking most of the colors. So that is the 60%. 30% is where your secondary color will come. These are icons, or these could be visual elements. Then the 10% is given to your accent color. Your accent color has to be the strongest color of the palette, right? Now when you look at this page, the CTS stands out because the color is different from the rest of the page, right? Because at the end of the day, when the user goes through this page, you want him to take some action. So all your action elements, they have to be in a consistent color, and they have to stand out from the rest of the design. Okay, so images and media, right? Now, once you start getting your design in place, experiment with the kind of images that will go. Again, this has to flow through from your mood board also. There are different kinds of, media. There are stock photos, there are, free images, there are illustrations, there are GIFs. So do your research, see what kind of images work for your brand, and what kind of images will connect with your user. What you also need to do is, if you're lucky enough, as you start developing the project right from your research phase, you have a user group to talk to. They will keep giving you continuous feedback as you keep adding these elements to your design. They are your judge, they are the best, the user is the best judge of your design, right? So if you have a user group that can test and validate your design, have a user group. If not, then your responsibility, like I said before, is to get your design fast in the world, and get feedback from the real world. So in our research, one of the things we thought was, we will have simple illustrations that denote office atmosphere, will work for a website. We don't want our customer to spend too much time, getting attracted to visuals, but we want him to order furniture fast, right? So here we are, what we are showing is, office is going on, and people are enjoying their work, and in the furniture is coming from us, right? So we are thinking of a hypothetical brand called Woodworks, and that rents awesome furniture, and we are giving him a CTA. So if you notice again here, I changed the button color, and I changed the illustrations color, just to give you another sample. So your button color, your action color has to be constant. The rest of the colors in your palette you can use differently based on your choice, right? Make your color choice intelligently, and you have to be able to strike that right balance, right? So that your design is not broken anywhere. The next is icons. So icons help in getting the message across. If you go to the airport, you'll see a lot of icons alongside signboards. So the best combination to use icons is icons with text. It will always help user remember stuff, right? So use icons as and when needed. Don't overdo it, but use it to strike the right balance, and give some level of up leveling to your content. Otherwise, your content will become very bland if it's just text, right? So bring that right balance of visual elements like icons and images. So go to icon sites. So we have a lot of icon sites like Flat Icons, Icon 8, Icon Scout, Noun Project. So try to understand what kind of icons will work for your customer. Now here, since we are talking to a startup founder who will not have a lot of time on his hands, keep your interface very simple, right? That is the design choice I'm making. So if you look at this, right, you have workstations, chairs, lounge, and storage, right? So all these icons are simple. So determine the design language based on again your user. What kind of iconography would work help best with the user, right? The last point of a good design is motion. So a static design again would not excite the user as much as a static design. If you have some moving elements, that will sort of create a visual story, and the user will get excited a little bit more to interact with your product. So as much as possible, introduce animation here and there. Don't overdo it, but it should be like a tadka, just a right amount to make your designs interesting. So here, if you see, I'm just going to the previous section I showed you where we have a list of products. I'm just going to do a simple animation with PowerPoint here, and the way in which the most content is appearing, it will kind of tell a story. Okay, these are the products that we are offering. Choose from any of this, right? So you bring in motion as and when needed to make your design interesting. These are the tips. Follow great designers, because they will be always be on social media. Now this is something that works a lot, right? Be on Instagram and be on Twitter. People, the great designers will keep posting their designs. They will ask, they will, there's something called as building in real world. There are some designers who are not afraid to build their design in the real world. They'll keep asking for feedback from peer designers. The next is keep practicing, right? So there's no end point here. Like in anything else, you keep practicing, you keep getting better. Third thing is fail fast, right? Iterate faster. Don't spend too much time on getting a perfect design. Always start with assumptions. Share the assumptions with your client. Tell them, this is what you're thinking, and keep your all the stakeholders, in loop from day one. If someone is going to review and approve the design, don't show in the finished product. Keep him in the loop from day one. Then the next thing is never settle for any design. So what happens in design is, if you look at your old designs from say 2 months old, 3 months old, they will start looking bad, because that's how design works. Okay, so don't settle for any design. Never think that your design is going to be perfect. Over a period of time, it's going to appear stale. You have to keep evolving, and your goal should be creating something timeless. So there's a person called Dieter Rams in Germany. Follow him. He's a good. He's was someone who is known for creating timeless designs, right? So don't settle for any design, but create timeless designs, and keep evolving. Then the most important thing is tell stories with your design. Always have a plot in place. Always have a cinematic, or a universe in place of characters, elements, and all that. And this is the universe that I'm going to present to the user and take him through it. This is my plot. So understand storytelling. So there are quite a There's one person called Menaka Chandrasekhar. There's one video on YouTube. I can share it later if you want. But that it's a very good video on learning how storytelling helps in getting a effective product design. So think of presenting your design in terms of stories, right? Because your user is going to go from one part to one place to another to accomplish his task. Think of telling a story. Last thing is think in terms of design systems, right? If you're doing a big project with hundreds and hundreds of pages or a product with hundreds of screens, your design has to be consistent on all places. So think of always start building design systems. Don't build each page differently. Have a reusable design system in place.
One of the participants wanted to know that he is from a not technical background,
Uh,
but he has interest in UI UX. So he wanted to know if he can start. If yes, what are the
yeah,
tools he has to look into?
yeah. Start with Figma. I think that it's a free tool. Start with that. And one thing you can start doing is take two or three products or apps you're using, and start creating those designs on Figma. Then you will start getting into the flow of how design works. And so start doing and learning, right? These are the two aspects. So start doing and keep doing, start learning and keep learning. So there's one more website called Interaction Design. They have a lot of good courses. Go to YouTube. There's something called as Flux Academy. You will learn a lot. There are a lot of good individual designers. There's one person called Jesse Showalter. He has a good channel on YouTube. So start doing and start learning. There's no other way. There's no rocket science here. Just keep doing design.
So I'm Sriram from S.A. Chandran Institute. I've been taking care of customer engagement in S.A. Chandran Institute
Okay.
for past 6 years. So why did I join this webinar is on a different perspective. I'm a
Okay.
client now. I'm looking for a website for my own company.
Okay.
So in my company, we are into training and development for manufacturing industries.
Okay.
What do we need to consider to design a? So this is our organization's website, and we are planning
Okay.
to redesign this website now. When you were talking about UI
Right.
and UX, it was really good. So I wanted to make it something attractive uh, here also. So at least I need to know what inputs I need to give to my vendor to work.
So there's one place called Dribble. Okay, so all the best designers upload their work there. Okay, so this design, it looks dated. That is the first impression, right? So
Yeah.
look at Dribble, or look at Twitter and see what trends are going on. The second thing is study your competitors, see if they have a better interface and they are doing something more modern, right? And the third thing is, like I said, find your user. Like, are you getting good footfall on your website from your customer? Who is your customer? Who is the website talking to?
So I'm not sure how to measure, how to see that footfall basically. That's a
No,
good
so
new
you will
thing.
have Google Analytics and all that. So
Yeah.
you can see how many people are coming. So first thing you have to determine is who is this website for, right? Then
Okay.
once you understand that, you talk, you see if you can catch hold of 5 or 10 people and take them to your site, and ask them to just watch, see how they are interacting with your site. Then you also have to determine what people want to take away from your site, and is your present website accomplishing that goal, right? So
Okay.
once you do that in mind, then you design your website accordingly. Okay, these are the main things that the user is coming to my site for, and these are the things I'll
Okay.
present to him first. So arrange your information on your site accordingly in that priority of importance. And then as far as
Okay.
look and feel of the design is concerned, see, this design is it's quite dated, right? So you modernize the design with simplification, better illustrations, photos, and see, this font size body text is a bit small for me, right? Make it
Okay.
bigger.
Okay.
And in a website, don't put paragraphs and paragraphs of text. Have bullet points. Make it short and sweet for the user. Imagine that the person is going to spend only 7 to 8 seconds on your website. How will you communicate your offering, right?
Okay. Okay. Got
Yeah,
it. Got it.
yeah. Keep those things in mind. Yeah,
Thank you. It was a great session. Thank you so much. Thank you.
yeah. No problem. Thank you. So I just had this homework, Pavitra. So if people want, they can take this
Yeah.
back. Yeah,
So we will share it with the participants and
yeah,
we'll request them to come back with the exercise, Subbu.
yeah, yeah.
Once we come back, I'll definitely share them with you. Thank you, Subbu, for the wonderful session that gave us. There was a lot of learning points, even for me.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Bye.
So, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.